welcome back, Michael, for another podcast.
Thanks, Josh.
For those listening, so we've got Michael Harvey from MDH Accounting, again known on the radio waves as Mikey Mike, and we're going to get into a bit more of a business deep dive today because last video we talked about MDH's 20 years, and congratulations again.
Thanks, Josh.
Thought a good opportunity just to pick your brain about new business owners and the common themes they see when they're starting up a business, those common struggles. So, What are some things that you've seen across your 20 years? You've coached hundreds of business, and there's different struggles that they go through with startup capital. Like, what are some things that you see?
So I suppose the common theme is that it can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. So you get the sense of excitement. So either you bought a business or you're starting up a business from scratch from an idea that you've had or bringing something to an area. So there is that sense of excitement, and you need that to ride the wave of the ups and downs of being working for yourself. Mm-hmm. So there's a mix of that and the sort of, I suppose, some of the fears of the unknown. So it is an adrenaline rush. So which I love and encourage. It's sort of it's probably the first step is how you then manage the adrenaline to turn that into sort of sustainable action. So.
Yeah, and is that like the ebbs and flows? Because I've seen different charts where they talk about, I think it was uninformed optimism. So you go through that excitement, but you don't quite know what you're getting into, and then you get into the informed pessimism because you start to realise how big this thing is that you need to tackle, and eventually you get through that challenge and you start getting to more informed optimism because now you know what to do and you're excited about it, and you kind of just keep going through those cycles. Is that something that you see with small business owners quite regularly?
I think overall we sort of have to be more towards the optimistic spectrum because there are challenges, there's no doubt about that in the business environment. So you sort of it's a good description you've got there, that you still got to be wise about where you're at and what the issues might be, but not be burdened by them as well. So because they can get on top of you sometimes if you sort of sit back and sort of worry about it too much, rather than just like, okay, what do we need to do tomorrow to make sort of the next step forward for the business?
Yeah, and that recalls me to some of the offsites we've done, and they were talking about the different types of stress, and I think the terminology was eustress, so it's kind of that productive stress that keeps you switched on and engaged, but not so much that it starts to break down your confidence or your, that positive thinking as well.
Yeah.
So how important do you think mindset versus technical knowledge is when you do start a business?
It's vital. It's sort of one of the secret ingredients to maintain that mindset. And I've always thought people, both in life and in business, they probably can overestimate what they can do in the first 12 months or something, and underestimate what they could do over a 3-year period. So I like the number 3 for a range of reasons, and in this context it's a sort of 3-year window. So you can run out of puff pretty quickly if you say, I need to do everything by tomorrow or next week or next quarter or whatever. But having a sort of 3-year vision, I think, gives sort of some oxygen to say, well, took a bit of a hit here, but I can sort of bounce back and things are going the other way. Now that beauty of 3 is I like quarterly cycles. So, okay, what are the 3 things that I need to achieve in this quarter that would make a difference to the business going forward? So it's just a nice mental sort of rhythm, I suppose, to keep the oxygen without running out of breath, as well as having the energy to keep going in that space.
Yeah, and do you think the rule of 3 also gives someone, I guess, permission not to sprint as well? So in the context of, not saying every month has to be my best month for the first 36 months, because that could be quite exhausting, but treating it as seasons and thinking, not to sound trite, but almost like a marathon, where it's not about beating your best time per kilometre each kilometre, it's recognising you've got a time frame to get to the end and you need to manage your energy along time. Sometimes you need to speed up or slow down. But
there are different rhythms. But sometimes it is a sprint, like if you've got a deadline for a client, if you're installing a piece of equipment, you've got a deadline to make, it might be you burn that midnight oil to achieve that outcome. But if you're doing that sort of week in, week out, day in, day out, that'll sort of burn you out at some point. But there's definitely seasons for sprints, and some some businesses by their nature have to be a bit tactical on the day or in the week just to sort of land some sales that just meet their targets or make sure their cash flow is up and running. So
yeah. Do you find some conversations I have with employees, so this is not the business side, but managing energy levels, because if you go 100% for 3 days, so you're busy, that's 300% output by the week, but if you go 80% for 4 days, all of a sudden that's 320% output. So sometimes doing slightly less but over a longer time frame, so seeing your business over a 3-year period, like you said, or longer, can actually help you to actually go further.
Yeah, I think so. I sort of liken it. It's just what you're able to do in sort of your downtime. It's very hard to switch off when you're in business. So for me, I don't probably switch off during the week. It's probably more the weekends. That's just a rule of thumb where I just try to have that total, switch off space as much as possible. Whereas during the week, it's a bit of, when the kids are younger, I sort of come home a bit earlier and then put them to bed and do work in the evening. And communicate that with your family, just say what that rhythm looks like. But I only speak for myself in this comment that I get energised by business stuff, whether it's reading business books or podcasts or whatever. So, find out what does energise you rather than depletes you. So,
yeah. And is that a big mistake that you sometimes see with businesses that do go under or change their direction, is just not focusing enough on the thing that fills them up or gives them energy?
I think you've got to find what fills your tank up, like from energy. And to go into business, you've got to have a bit of a vision or a bit of a, what problem you're trying to solve for clients, for the consumer, who your target market is and stuff like that. So, you've got some basic business principles to look at. You just got to be able to focus on that sort of side of things.
And you mentioned business principles. So what are some of those fundamental things that your business owners should be thinking about when they transition from being an employee with a fixed wage, now you've got a business, whether it's under a sole trader or a company? I'm sure it comes with different things that they need to do. Cash flow, is that something that needs to be focused on?
Yeah, pretty much. It's probably, you've got the business owner, the visionary, and their energy and passion and looking after themselves, which you've touched upon. And then you've got actually the business metrics itself and from a financial management perspective, I can't reiterate to know your numbers very well. You can outsource some of the production of those numbers. You might have a bookkeeper or something like that who does some of those tasks. But regularly, like monthly, at the very latest, you know your numbers. Okay, what are those numbers? I suppose is the question. So certainly, top line, your revenue side of it, you're looking at what's your target point. So normally, before you start out, you might have a break-even budget. I need $50,000 sales a month, so to break even and cover my costs. So you need to know what you're tracking on that side of things, as well as what breaks it up. Okay, I've got this many clients at this average revenue, or this many customers come through the door and they're spending average $100 a head when they come and sit down for a meal, or whatever it might look like. So really know your numbers like that. And then, so that's your top line, your revenue, and then your gross profit is where, in my view, where the action is. So gross profit looks different for different businesses, but it's still where the action is. So if you're, say, in a retail hospitality, it's less the cost of sales. So retail business, whatever you're buying your product for and then reselling it out. For hospitality, it's your food and beverage costs and your wage costs. For the professions that sort of you and I are in, it's your cost is your wages, so your wage to income ratio is your gold. So that, to some extent, where the action is, and then your bottom line, so your net profit, sort of takes care of itself if you've got those other two numbers managed, because to some extent the operating costs are fixed, inverted commas. I mean, you can change your operating costs, you can downsize your rent or upsize your rent, whatever, but from a day-to-day perspective, you sort of not much you can influence that, whereas the gross profit, you can look at that and go, my margin's not quite enough from the markup on that particular job, or I'm paying my guys overtime, I need to, charge a loading or a call out fee or something like that if you're in the trades industry. So they're sort of the key metrics. And then cash flow, as you sort of mentioned, is the number one problem that needs management. So how do you manage that? So your revenue, and depending on the nature of the business you're in, it could be, so if you're in actually product-related business, then you've got some stock, so you've got money tied up in stock, and then if you're a retailer, people tend to pay on sales, you don't have much on debtors. But if you're another type of business, like a more wholesaler, warehousing type of business, you might have money tied up in stock and money tied up in debtors. So you make sales, sell it to Josh today, and give you 40 days, 30 days terms before you pay me back. So that's where you can have a lot of money tied up, where people can get. The number one question when I sit down with people and do their tax and in the financial year, it's like, where did my money go? Like, you show them the profit and you unpack it and say, it's gone to, you've increased your inventory, your debt has increased. So
money owed to them is just sitting there. Yeah. So, I mean, the building industry comes to mind. They operate on that kind of basis where they have a lot of expenses for an extended period of time before they get paid for it. So having, I guess, a cash flow buffer or money in the bank, how important is that for a new business that starts out? Yeah,
it's only a cash flow buffer. I think it might have shared from my business, it was just a line of credit on a home loan, which is a reality for a lot of people. So it's only a cash flow buffer or some access to capital. But also look at your business model and just say, well, I need a deposit up front. If you're a builder, I need X dollars up front to cover my costs, for ordering materials. Or you'll see some businesses go, I can order that in, some special order, I need a 50% deposit. I'm thinking, can't think of what was that, they had 100% deposit basically for a special order. So, I'm not against that, it's just sort of a surprise, but a good surprise that they're managing their cash flow well and setting their business principles around that. So set your model up, and then on your, say, take debtors, people owe you, just be very vigilant on that. Even today, I sort of have a weekly meeting with a debtors person just to sort of keep a hand on that, so it's a constant watch. And there's some good, like we sort of have most of our clients on Xero, and there's some good automations these days that have come in the last few years where you can just do that reminder system out to clients, you drip feed that competent sort of reminder to people, don't forget to pay us due this Friday, or it's overdue, whatever. So just set up your systems to be able to manage that in that scenario. Or if you're in a manufacturing plant, you've got a more cash flow lag because you've got to buy raw materials, pay wages, make the product, then sit on your shelf for a period of time, then sell it, and then give 30 days terms to your client. So you've got 3 stages of mock-up or money tied up. So it's not against that, but I suppose, just put a lot of energy into how you manage your systems and how to keep on top of those elements. And even, I encourage people just with technology, with Xero and other accounting packages, you can be top of your debtors, do your bank recs regularly so you know who owes you money, who doesn't owe you money. And so you've got real visibility on that sort of thing. So, you really can't stress enough the whole cash flow. So buffer, but also just managing the whole process.
Yeah, so as a summary, it kind of sounds like you need to understand how your business is going to charge and what those turnaround times are to get the receivables in. Because that affects your cash flow. Keeping an eye on money in, money out on a monthly basis at the latest. And although you can outsource some of the work of putting the numbers together on a monthly, don't outsource the influencing of those numbers. You need to remain in control of your business.
Yeah, and if you're someone who doesn't sort of quickly understand that, find someone, mentor or partner to be able to assist those in interpretations of your numbers, but certainly get to know your numbers.
Yeah, very good. Well, next time this is going to make a multi-part series because there's so much to unpack. I'd love to almost use a loose case study and say, if you've got someone going into business, what operating structure should they go on? If you talk to tradies, it's often sole trader. At what point do you bring on staff and switch to companies, that sort of thing. So it'd be good to unpack that further. But this will be the end of part 1, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Josh.
And
questions.
We'll see you at the next one.
All right, thanks, Josh.